April 12, 2023. The sleek, glass-walled lobby of Apex Dynamics headquarters in San Francisco, 8:47 p.m. The sterile scent of lemon cleaner and ambition hung in the air-conditioned silence, broken only by the rhythmic, furious tapping on a mechanical keyboard. At a sprawling mahogany desk littered with empty cold brew cans and architectural schematics, Leo Vance, 28, was burning the last of his prodigious talent. His fingers flew across the keys, rendering a 3D model of a sustainable urban park with breathtaking, intricate detail. Every blade of grass in the simulation seemed to catch the virtual sunset just so. Leo was Apex's youngest senior architectural designer, a man whose raw talent had been the talk of the industry since his grad school portfolio went viral. The project on his screen was for a prestigious city contract, a project he'd been handed due to his reputation. His monitor glowed, a lonely beacon in the dark, open-plan office. Suddenly, the main glass door hissed open. Leo didn't look up. He assumed it was janitorial. But the footsteps that entered were wrong, too light, hesitant, accompanied by the squeak of sensible rubber soles on polished concrete. He finally glanced over the top of his monitor. It was Maya Solano, 30, from the Logistics and Implementation Department. She wore a slightly rumpled Apex polo, her hair in a practical ponytail, and she carried a bulky, outdated tablet and a physical binder. She stopped short, her brown eyes wide with surprise. "Oh, Leo, I didn't think anyone would be here. I just needed to double-check the material load and schedules for the Bristol Street project. The site manager needs them by 7 a.m. Leo offered a tight, dismissive smile, his gaze already drifting back to his luminous creation. The Bristol Street project, that's the mixed-use retrofit, right? Shouldn't be too complicated. The schematics have been finalized for weeks. His tone wasn't cruel, but it was layered with the quiet arrogance of someone who dealt in vision, not logistics. Maya's shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly. "The schematics were amended after the last client meeting," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "The rear access point changed. It affects the crane scheduling and the delivery window for the composite panels. If the panels arrive before the crane is repositioned, the whole site blocks up." Leo blinked, his flying fingers stilling for the first time in an hour. He minimized his stunning park model and pulled up the Bristol Street file. He scanned it quickly. She was right. A tiny, red-lined annotation he'd glossed over, a minor client nice to have, had ripple effects he hadn't considered. He'd been so focused on the aesthetic flow of the facade, he'd treated the access point as just another line on a blueprint. He murmured, a flicker of annoyance crossing his sharp features. Annoyance at the client, at the change, at this woman for pointing out a problem that felt beneath him. "Well, I'm sure you'll sort it out, Maya. That's your department's forte, isn't it? Making the vision work on the ground." He said it as a compliment, but it landed as a partition. He was the artist, she was the mechanic. Maya simply nodded, a faint flush on her cheeks. "Right, I'll leave you to it." She turned and walked toward a bank of filing cabinets in a dim corner, her figure swallowed by the shadows outside the pool of light from Leo's desk. The sound of a metal drawer sliding open echoed in the vast space. Leo stared at his screen, but the magic of his digital park had faded slightly. All he could see now was that red annotation line, a tiny crack in the perfection of his talent. Leo tried to immerse himself in his virtual park. He zoomed in on a cascading water feature, adjusting the refractive properties of the simulated water. It was technically masterful, but his mind kept snagging on the Bristol Street file, on the quiet certainty in Maya's voice. "The whole site blocks up." It was a mundane disaster. Not the collapse of a design, but the paralysis of its execution. He found himself pulling the Bristol Street plans back up, examining the logistical chain his beautiful design had inadvertently broken. In the shadows, Maya worked methodically. Leo could hear the rustle of paper, the soft tap of her stylus on her tablet screen, an occasional murmured note to herself as she cross-referenced schedules. It was a soundscape of meticulous, unglamorous labor. He watched her for a moment, backlit by the faint glow of an emergency exit sign. She wasn't just checking a schedule, she was building a symphony of coordination: delivery trucks, crane operators, union-mandated break times, city permit windows, weather contingencies. Her world was one of concrete constraints, while his was one of infinite digital possibility. His phone buzzed. A message from Sarah, his girlfriend, flashed on the screen. "You're going to miss the reservation, aren't you?" Again. He sighed, a knot of guilt and resentment tightening in his chest. He typed a quick, evasive reply, promising to make it up to her, knowing his promise was as insubstantial as the pixels on his screen. Sarah didn't understand the pressure, the need to prove that his talent was worth the special treatment, the latitude he was given. He had to be brilliant, not just competent. Brilliance excused his lateness, his single-minded focus, his dismissal of the minutiae. He looked back at Maya. She had her phone to her ear now, voice low but clear in the empty lobby. "Yes, Mr. Henderson, I understand the crane operator's window is tight. I've already recalculated. If we shift the panel delivery to a 2:15 p.m. arrival instead of morning and have your team prep the secondary staging area first, we can keep everything moving. I've emailed you the revised traffic management plan. The city inspector is already confirmed for the new time." She listened, nodding. "No, it's not a problem. It's my job to make it work for you." She hung up and made a neat checkmark in her binder. No drama, no flourish, just a problem solved, a potential crisis averted before it ever reached the architects, the clients, or the CEO. Leo felt a strange, hollow sensation. His own project, the urban park, was a masterpiece waiting for applause. But Maya's project, Bristol Street, was a living organism she was keeping alive and functional through sheer, attentive diligence. He stood up abruptly, the chair rolling back with a loud screech. Maya glanced over. "Heading out?" she asked. "Yeah," Leo said, shutting down his workstation. The park model vanished, leaving a dark monitor reflecting his own tired face. "Big presentation for the city committee tomorrow. This park project, it needs to be perfect." Maya gave a small, polite smile. "I'm sure it will be. Good luck, Leo." There was no envy in her voice, no resentment, just a professional courtesy. As he walked out into the cool night air, Leo felt the weight of his talent like a heavy, ornate crown. It was impressive, but it was rigid. Maya's average, unremarkable competency, he realized, was like water, adaptable, persistent, and capable of wearing down any obstacle, even one created by a brilliant mind. His failure, if it came, wouldn't be from a lack of talent. It would come from 1,000 tiny cracks in the foundation he couldn't be bothered to see, cracks someone like Maya spent her life filling. April 13th, 2023. 10:15 a.m. The City Planning Committee chamber was a monument to civic solemnity. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, and a long, imposing dais where 5 committee members sat, their faces etched with varying degrees of boredom and scrutiny. The air smelled of old paper, coffee, and faint traces of lemon polish. Leo Vance stood at the podium, his custom-tailored navy suit feeling like a suit of armor. His park model was rendered in stunning 4K on the large screen behind him, a verdant, shimmering oasis in the heart of the concrete downtown. "And as you can see," Leo concluded, his voice confident, "the biophilic design principles aren't just aesthetic, they're integrated into the stormwater management system, reducing runoff by an estimated 40%. He clicked to a final, breathtaking aerial view. "This isn't just a park, it's a statement on sustainable urban coexistence." He offered a polished smile. The presentation had been flawless, a technical and visual tour de force. He saw a few committee members nodding, one even offering a small smile. This was it. The culmination of 3 months of obsessive work, his talent displayed and validated. Then the questions began. Councilwoman Riggs, a woman with sharp glasses and a sharper tone, leaned into her microphone. "Mr. Vance, it's visionary, truly. The water feature is spectacular. My question is about maintenance access. On page 47 of the schematics, the service path for the filtration pumps seems to converge with the main pedestrian thoroughfare near the amphitheater. How will Parks Department vehicles perform routine maintenance without closing down a primary walkway during peak hours?" Leo's smile didn't falter, but a cold trickle started down his spine. Page 47, he'd spent weeks on the structural engineering and the botanical layout. The service paths, he delegated those to an intern for detailing. He'd glanced at them, of course. They looked fine. Excellent question, Councilwoman," he said, buying time. "The convergence is minimal and designed for off-peak scheduled maintenance. The pathways are rated for the vehicle weight." "Scheduled for when?" pressed Councilman Choi. "Our parks crew works weekdays 7 to 3. That is peak pedestrian time for that downtown location. Did you coordinate with the Parks Department operations chief during this phase?" Leo's mind went blank. He hadn't. Coordination was for later, for the implementation people, for people like Maya. "We have factored in operational flexibility," he said, the phrase feeling hollow even as he said it. "Factor in reality, Mr. Vance," said Riggs, not unkindly, but with devastating finality. A beautiful park that can't be maintained is a beautiful problem. We need to see a revised logistics plan integrating operational feasibility before we can even consider moving to the next stage. The polite applause that followed was a funeral dirge for his momentum. Leo gathered his materials, his face hot. He saw his project manager, Diane, at the back of the room, her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't need to say anything. The vision was dead on arrival, killed not by a lack of beauty or innovation, but by a service path. As he walked out into the hallway, defeated, his phone buzzed. It was a company-wide email alert. The subject line, Bristol Street Retrofit Phase 1 completed ahead of schedule and under budget. The body praised the seamless cross-departmental coordination and specifically mentioned the logistics and implementation team for exceptional proactive problem solving. There was no mention of the architect who designed the facade, but Leo knew. He knew who had ensured the composite panels, the ones his beautiful design specified, arrived exactly when and where they needed to be. Maya Solano hadn't been in a room seeking applause. She'd been on the ground, making sure the crane was in the right place. In that sterile government hallway, Leo Vance, the prodigy, felt the foundational flaw in his own philosophy crack wide open. Talent builds the castle. Average, diligent competency builds the road to it, the plumbing within it, and ensures the garbage gets taken out. Without the road, the castle is just a forgotten monument on a hill, visible to all but accessible to none. The elevator at Apex Dynamics descended from the executive floors with a hushed, expensive sigh. Inside, Leo Vance leaned against the mirrored wall, his reflection a pale imitation of the confident man from yesterday. The taste of defeat was coppery and sour. The committee's polite dismissal wasn't a rejection of his talent, they'd openly admired it, but a rejection of his method. His vision was, in their eyes, a beautiful liability. The doors slid open on the third floor, logistics and implementation. It was a realm of cubicles, not glass-walled offices, of whiteboards crammed with Gantt charts and delivery timelines, not pristine screens displaying digital art. The air hummed with the low din of phone conversations, the clack of keyboards, and the rhythmic beeping of a handheld scanner from the adjacent warehouse bay. It smelled of photocopier toner and freshly brewed utilitarian coffee. Leo stood there, a trespasser in his own expensive suit. He saw Maya 3 rows in. She wasn't at her desk. She was crouched beside the cubicle of a young, flustered-looking man pointing at something on his monitor. Her tablet was tucked under her arm, her binder open on the floor. "No, see, the vendor has it listed as a 4-day lead time," she said, her voice calm and instructive. "But that's business days. Your site pour is scheduled for Monday morning. If you order today, Thursday, the clock doesn't start until tomorrow. That pushes delivery to Wednesday of next week at the earliest. You need to call them, get a warehouse pickup authorization, and send the rental van. It's an extra cost, but it's cheaper than a full crew standing around on Monday with nothing to do." The young man's face cleared with relief. "Right. God, of course. Thank you, Maya. Anytime. Just always check the fine print on lead times. They love to hide the business day part." She patted his shoulder and stood, turning to find Leo standing awkwardly at the end of the aisle. Her expression shifted from easy mentorship to polite, professional surprise. "Leo, can I help you with something? Is there an issue with Bristol Street?" The question was genuine. In her world, his presence here could only mean a problem. "No, no issue," Leo said, the words feeling strange. "I saw the email. Congratulations, ahead of schedule is impressive." Maya shrugged, a faint smile touching her lips. "It's just the job. The crew on the ground did the hard work. We just made sure they had what they needed when they needed it." She picked up her binder and moved back toward her desk. Leo followed, feeling like a ghost. "Can I buy you a coffee?" he blurted out. I had my presentation for the Civic Park project this morning." Maya paused, assessing him. She saw the tension in his jaw, the shadow in his eyes that had nothing to do with the fluorescent lighting. She wasn't average in her perception, Leo realized. She was acutely observant. "The one you were working on last night?" she asked. He nodded. She let out a small, understanding breath. "The cafe downstairs is okay. Give me 2 minutes to send this revised inventory sheet." As they sat in the bustling cafeteria 10 minutes later, Leo found himself not talking about the park's glorious design, but about the service path, about the park's department, about the brutal, practical question that had unraveled everything. He spoke not as a brilliant architect to a logistics coordinator, but as a confused professional to another. Maya listened, stirring her plain black coffee. "Councilwoman Riggs is famous for that," she said finally. She used to be the deputy director of public works. She's killed more visionary projects with parking and garbage truck access questions than anyone in the city. Why didn't anyone tell me that? Leo asked, frustration bubbling up. Would you have listened? Maya asked, her gaze direct but not accusatory. You were focused on the vision, that's what you're paid for. People probably assumed the details would get worked out later. They always do, until they don't. The truth of it settled over him. He had created a masterpiece in a vacuum. Maya operated in the messy, interconnected reality where every detail was a thread in a larger web. His failure wasn't a lack of talent, it was a failure of connection, of understanding that a design doesn't exist on a screen. It exists in a world of lead times, union rules, maintenance schedules, and political pet peeves. My talent, Leo said quietly, more to himself than to her, it feels like a high-performance engine, but I've been trying to drive it without ever learning how to read a map. Maya took a sip of her coffee. An engine is useless if it's pointed at a cliff, Leo. Sometimes, moving forward isn't about more horsepower. It's about checking the coordinates. The following week was a study in quiet humiliation for Leo. The Civic Park project was officially on hold pending logistical review, a corporate euphemism that felt stamped on his forehead. His corner office, once a symbol of his meteoric rise, now felt like a glass cage displaying a failed specimen. He watched the Bristol Street retrofit progress with a new, aching clarity. Every photo update from the site showed his beautiful facade being installed with methodical precision, a precision born from Maya's schedules and contingency plans. He couldn't return to his old ways. The park model sat untouched on his computer, the service path junction now a glaring, mocking symbol of his blindness. He needed to understand the map, not just admire the engine. He found himself back on the third floor, this time not as a lost executive, but as a petitioner. He approached Maya's cubicle with a printout of the park's problematic area. She was on the phone, her voice calm but firm. I understand the premium for the expedited shipping, but if you look at Clause 7B in our vendor agreement, delays attributable to carrier selection on your end nullify that surcharge. Yes, I have the email chain from February where you confirmed the carrier. I can forward it to you now. She paused, listening. Great. I'll expect the adjusted invoice by end of day. Thank you. She hung up and looked at Leo, her eyebrows raised in question. I need a tutor, Leo said, the words foreign in his mouth. He placed the printout on her desk. And I'm willing to trade. You teach me how to see the coordinates, and I don't know. I'll review your team's design interface documents before they go out. I can spot potential aesthetic or structural conflicts before they become your problem. Maya leaned back in her chair, considering him. It was a fair offer. Her team often had to clean up messes created by the design department's beautiful oversights. Having an architect, especially a talented one, as a liaison would save her countless hours. You want to learn about utility corridors, fire department turn around radii, and dumpster placement? She asked, a hint of a challenge in her voice. I want to learn how not to fail, Leo said simply. Their collaboration began in stolen moments. Late afternoons in her cubicle, the chaos of logistics swirling around them. Leo, with his Moleskine and expensive pen, took notes like a first-year student. Maya walked him through her Bible, a massive, color-coded master schedule for a current hospital wing expansion. She showed him how a single change in the type of glass specified by the architect, a change made for light refraction aesthetics, had a domino effect, requiring stronger structural supports delayed from a supplier in Ohio, which altered the crane lifting schedule, requiring a new city permit, which pushed back the exterior ceiling timeline, introducing a weather risk. This, she said, tapping the complex, interwoven spreadsheet, is the real blueprint. Your drawings are just the idea. This is the story of how it gets born, and if the story doesn't make sense, the idea never breathes. Leo began to see his own work through this lens. He started running his new concepts, no matter how small, by Maya. If I put this window here, does it block the future HVAC unit for the next tenant? If I specify this custom tile, what's the lead time? And is there a substitute that looks 90% the same but is available locally? It was frustrating, tedious work. It felt like trying to compose a symphony while simultaneously calculating the acoustic physics of the concert hall. But slowly, a shift occurred. He wasn't diluting his vision, he was grounding it. He began incorporating flexibility, access points, and material availability into the design process, not as afterthoughts. The solutions, he discovered, could be elegant in their own right. A service corridor became a shaded, verdant walkway for maintenance staff. A material substitution led to a new, interesting textural contrast he'd never considered. He was no longer just an architect. He was becoming a builder. And he watched Maya, the average coordinator, command respect from burly site foremen, shrewd vendors, and exasperated city officials with her quiet, unshakable command of facts, timelines, and solutions. Her talent wasn't a flash of lightning. It was the steady, reliable pull of gravity, keeping every project grounded in the possible. Leo had once seen her world as beneath his. Now, he understood it was the foundation upon which his world could safely stand. November 15th, 2023. The same city planning committee chamber. The same high ceilings and dark wood. The same 5 faces at the dais, but the atmosphere in Leo Vance's veins was entirely different. 7 months ago, he had stood here as a solo artist, presenting a masterpiece. Today, he stood as part of a team. He wasn't alone at the podium. Maya Solano stood beside him, dressed in a simple, professional blazer, her tablet, and that ever-present binder on the lectern. Behind them, their slides were not just renders of the urban park, but a hybrid of vision and viability. Council members, Leo began, his voice steady, less theatrical, more conversational. Thank you for the opportunity to revisit the Harmony Park proposal. We heard your concerns regarding long-term operational feasibility loud and clear. He clicked the remote. The first image was not the stunning aerial view, but a clear, color-coded diagram titled Integrated Maintenance and Access Plan. Working in close consultation with the City Parks Department Operations team and our logistics lead, Ms. Solano, Leo said, gesturing to Maya, we have fully redesigned the service infrastructure. He explained the new, dedicated utility path, screened by native plantings, that allowed full vehicle access without disrupting pedestrian flow. He showed the prefabricated, accessible filter housings for the water feature, designed for easy quarterly servicing. Councilwoman Riggs watched, her head tilted, her pen still. Leo then handed the narrative to Maya. Ms. Solano will walk you through the phased implementation schedule and community impact mitigation. Maya stepped forward. Her voice didn't boom, it carried with calm authority. Using the city's preferred project management portal, we've built a live schedule, she said, bringing up a complex but clear Gantt chart on the screen. Phase 1, site preparation and utility diversion, can begin within 30 days of permit approval, aligning with the parks department's off-peak season. All major material deliveries have been coordinated with the Downtown Business Alliance to avoid morning and evening rush hours. She clicked again, showing a traffic flow animation. We've also identified a local supplier for 80% of the composite decking, reducing transport carbon footprint and supporting the regional economy with a documented 15% cost saving that we're recommending be reallocated to the Public Art Fund. Councilman Choi leaned forward. You've spoken with the Business Alliance already? Yes, sir, Maya replied. We held 2 virtual workshops. Their main concern was delivery truck idling. Our solution includes designated, time-limited staging areas with a city-approved haul route. She didn't smile triumphantly. She stated facts. The plans were airtight, not because they were born of genius, but because they were born of 1,000 considered constraints. The questions this time were different. They were not traps, but inquiries. How does this affect the project's total timeline? Can this supplier meet the volume? Maya answered each one, referencing specific document pages, vendor agreements, and backup plans. Leo chimed in only when asked about design integrity, explaining how each logistical change had been woven into the aesthetic, strengthening rather than compromising it. The park was no longer just a statement. It was a living, breathable, maintainable part of the city's body. After 20 minutes, Councilwoman Riggs set down her pen. She looked from Leo to Maya and back. This, she said, is a substantial and professional revision. You've addressed our core concerns. You've shown respect for the process, for the departments who will live with this project for decades, and for the public's investment. She glanced at her colleagues, who nodded. We are prepared to recommend approval to the full council, pending final review of these new documents. There was no standing ovation, but the ripple of approval, the shuffling of papers in agreement, was sweeter than any applause Leo had ever received. He had won. But he hadn't won alone, and the victory tasted not of champagne, but of solid ground finally held beneath his feet. As they packed up their materials in the now empty chamber, Leo felt a profound exhaustion, the good kind earned from a hard climb. He looked at Maya, who was neatly slotting her printed notes back into her binder. You know, he said, his voice low in the quiet room, I used to think talent was the spark that started the fire, that everything else was just carrying wood. Maya clicked her binder shut and looked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. And now I think talent is just one type of wood, Leo said. It burns bright and fast, but to build a fire that lasts, that cooks a meal and keeps people warm through the night, you need different kinds. You need the slow-burning logs of diligence, the kindling of organization, the air of practicality. Without all of it, the spark just makes a brief, pretty light and then leaves everyone in the dark. He had finally read the map, and he understood why the average, steady traveler often reached the destination long before the brilliant sprinter who kept running down dead-end paths. The sprinter was only in love with the run. The traveler was in love with the place they were trying to reach.